welcome everyone. And my name is Jolie, and I am the Student Recruitment Manager at the College of Legal Practice. So together with my colleague Sydney, we oversee the journey of prospective students from their initial interest to signing up or applying for a program with the college. And for me, I also work with different university law societies and also different ambassadors at campus in supporting their events and fairs as well. And here today with us, we also have Sarah Taylor, our program leader, and she is the program leader for the part-time LLM in legal practice and also the GDL program, and she's also the module leader and supervisor for many of the modules as well. So welcome and thank you for joining us tonight, Sarah.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Thank you. So what we will be covering today. So this is just a very brief agenda of what we'll cover. Of course, we will talk a little bit about our college, the SQE qualification route, and also the SQE 1 and 2 assessments. We will also be showing you guys the course demo and some sample questions. And lastly, we'll be talking a little bit more about the college's preparation course for the SQE and some funding opportunities. And of course, there will be plenty opportunities for you to ask questions. So feel free to utilize the Q&A and also chat box. So first of all, who are we? So for those who don't know, we are a fully online postgraduate law school built for online. And we specialize in SQE preparation. And our parent company are the College of Law, and they are the leaders in legal education in Australia. And we have around 25 years of digital learning expertise. And you can see on the screen here about our ethos, and we are all about being accessible and also affordable. And traditionally, the law is known for being a profession with many barriers, and we really wanted to do our parts to eliminate that barrier by offering courses and programs at an affordable price. We also like to facilitate access through our personal and also targeted individual support, where students will get access to high level of personal supervision. And lastly, we wanted to ensure that we provide an inclusive learning environment through our learning and also teaching. So we'll be able to provide reasonable adjustments for those who need it, giving everyone an opportunity to get the most of their learning. So on the next slide here, you will be able to see some examples of law firms, organizations, and also universities that we work with. We are trusted by them, and in some of the partnership, most of the partnership, we are delivering our SQE preparation module as part of our partnership. And you can see some of the quotes by some of our partners on the screen here. So moving forward, I'm going to pass it to Sarah, and she will be able to talk us through some key facts about the SQE route and also some key facts about the assessment. So over to you now, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Jolie. So if we go on to the next slide, this just is, this is an overview taken from the SRA as to the new SQE route to qualification. And as you can see, it's a jigsaw with 4 pieces that needed to be fitted together. And I think the purpose of this diagram, the jigsaw, is to show that this new route to qualification is more flexible than the old route to qualification under the LPC and training contract route. So you put together the 4 pieces of the jigsaw in the way that suits you. Although I would say that in terms of the first bit of the jigsaw that probably needs to be put into place is your degree or equivalent, and then moving on from there. But the other bits of the jigsaw, in particular the qualifying work experience and the SQE 1 and SQE 2, can be fitted together in the way that best suits you. And later on in this webinar, we'll be showing you the ways in which you can do that. So let's take a bit more of an in-depth look now at the first part of the SQE exam which you'll be taking. So the first element of assessment is SQE 1, and you may already have heard quite a lot of noise about this exam. It is quite different probably to any other exams that you might have sat, whether as part of a law degree or another qualification. So let's just have a look at some of the key facts. So the purpose of SQE 1 is to test what the SRA call your functioning legal knowledge. And essentially, what they're aiming to do here is testing your legal knowledge at a point where you are to become a day one solicitor. So they're looking at your capability and understanding of legal knowledge to enable you to go into the workplace and provide advice to a client. So that functioning legal knowledge, as it says on this slide, covers 13 areas of law. And essentially, they're drawn from two main areas. The first is drawn from what we call the LLB foundations. So those are the compulsory subjects that you would normally study as part of your LLB. So they're the academic subjects such as contract, tort, land, and trust. So those are just examples. So that's some of the practice areas that you'll be examined on under SQE1. The other main areas are what we call practice areas. So they're the more vocational areas that you would have previously studied under the LPC. So they are the areas that you will undertake when you get into practice, which are things like business law and practice, property law and practice, criminal and civil litigation, and those subjects also draw on those more academic subjects as well. So you're examined on all of those 13 areas of law in the SQE1 assessment. Now, the main difference in terms of how this assessment is set up is that it's done by way of multiple choice. So you have sort of 360 compulsory multiple choice questions, which are divided into two exams, which are called FLK1 and FLK2. And those set of exams you might have already heard are all online under timed conditions, and you essentially sit 4 papers, each of 2.5 hours over a 2-day period. So that sounds fairly straightforward, but what needs to be understood is that those multiple choice questions are not probably like any multiple choice questions you might have sat before. As it says on the right-hand side of the screen, they are what is known as single best answer. So each question will have a stem or a scenario, and then a question, and then there'll always be 5 options. And at first sight, all of those 5 options as answers are all plausible. But what you're looking for is, based on the facts, what is the single best answer for this particular question? And we're going to look at what a typical MCQ question might look like a little bit later on. You can see that it's a fairly sort of rigorous timed assessment. So as I've said already, you have 90 minutes in which to complete you have 2.5 hours, in which to complete 90 questions. So that's approximately about 1 minute and 40 seconds for each question. So you need to have that legal knowledge at your fingertips. And I know that one of the questions that's been raised is, can you tackle SQE without any sort of basic grounding in either a law degree or of a conversion course? Well, the SRA say yes, you can. There is no longer a need to have a law degree or a conversion course. But what we would advocate and absolutely recommend is that you don't try and tackle SQE 1 and 2 without some sort of grounding in legal knowledge, because as you can see, you've got 13 practice areas to actually get up to speed with, and having a law degree or having a conversion course which covers those sort of law degree subjects will provide you with the foundations and the springboard in which to tackle SQE1 at an appropriate level. So yes, it's possible, but we wouldn't recommend it. So the other thing just to note, just in relation to the SQE1 assessment, is that essentially, as I've said, it's an online exam, and you can take that at anywhere within the world where there is what we call a Pearson VUE test centre location. So anyone who perhaps has already sat their theory driving test in the UK, it's those test centres that the SRA use for the SQE1 assessments. And the SRA have got 2 assessment points in each year. So in January and July every year, they hold their SQE1 exams. And as you can see, the SRA exam fees for sitting SQE1 are currently just under £2,000, and those fees are separate to any course fees that you may pay. So that's SQE1. Shall we just pause for any questions people might have on SQE1 before we move on to SQE2, or shall I move straight on to
Yeah,
SQE2?
sure. We actually has a question, but it's not specific to SQE1. But Jennifer did has a question about when is the best time to begin the SQE, and would you recommend doing it now before they go into the LLM postgraduate degree, or can I do it after the postgraduate degree?
Okay, so if you're going, so most institutions now have what we call an SQE LLM integrated degree. So as part of your your LLM degree program, you would do preparation courses that would get you ready for SQE 1 and 2. So you'd actually, if you did one of those integrated courses, you'd actually study SQE as part of that degree course. And there are normally, for example, you'll see in a minute, our degree course has gaps entered into in our program to enable you to have time to sit SQE1 and SQE2. So you don't have to do it before or after. You can do it as part of your degree. But what I would say is I wouldn't it's up to you. But I think if you're thinking of doing SQE, it's a really good idea, I think, to consider looking at one of those integrated SQE LLMs. And we'll
Great.
come on to that in a minute in ourselves. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you, Sarah. And we have another question here about SQE1 is from Mary, and she was wondering, what would you say is a long time after graduating that would be considered a bit too long to sit the SQE1?
Okay, that's a really good question. It's one that we do get asked quite a lot. I would recommend that if you can, and obviously it does depend on your circumstances and things like money, I would actually well we'll see in a minute there's some pathways, but if you're absolutely sort of keen to qualify and you know that that's what you want to do, then I would recommend that you probably attempt SQE as soon as you can while your knowledge is still fresh, because we have found that people who leave a very long gap between perhaps graduating from their LLB and then moving on to SQE, they've got quite a lot to get back up to speed with that legal knowledge. So as well as sort of getting back up to speed with their LLB subjects, you've also got to get on top of those those vocational subjects. So sort of making it easier for yourself by doing it fairly shortly after your LLB is probably a recommendation.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. I can see that there's another question, but it's about the like they're working full time, but they were asking how many hours they will need to set aside to study for the SQE. And I know that we're going to talk
I was
about
going
it.
to say,
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say, can we leave that? We
Yeah,
won't forget
of course.
it. Can we
No
leave that
problem.
one to one side?
Of
Because
course.
I'm hoping that we'll be able to answer that
Yeah,
shortly. But if
no
not, we'll
problem.
come back to it if it's not quite as specific enough.
Sure. That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Okay, so that's SQE1. So moving on to SQE2, which is the second exam that you normally have to pass. There are certain exemptions on the SRA website from elements of SQE1 and SQE2. So we're just using the standard approach, which is you do SQE, you need to do both SQE1 and SQE2. So you can't, one thing to note is that you can't sit SQE2 until you have passed SQE1. So the SRA won't let you book onto SQE2 until they've got evidence that you've passed SQE1. And the reason for that is because, as I've already explained, SQE1 is giving you that foundation in that functioning legal knowledge, and you'll still need to use that functioning legal knowledge when you come onto SQE2. So although SQE2 is sort of badged, as it says on this slide, the legal skills exam element of SQE2, obviously you're not going to be tested on those legal skills in isolation. All of those legal skills are examined in the context of those 5 practice areas which are on this screen. So those are those vocational subjects I mentioned a minute ago. So those 5 practice areas are business, dispute resolution, or you might know it as civil litigation, property, criminal litigation, and wills. And remember, I said that obviously those 5 practice areas also draw on those underpinning law from those other academic subjects. So that's the reason why you still need to have a really good grounding in that functioning legal knowledge from SQE1. So on top of that legal knowledge, what SQE2 will be examining you on is 6 legal skills, and those are all outlined on the right-hand side of this screen. So there are 2 oral skills, one of which you can see at the top of the list, which is advocacy, and the other oral skill is client interviewing and attendance note. So those are all things that you're going to be undertaking as a solicitor. And obviously the SRA want to make sure you have competency in those skills. In addition, you've got to undertake 4 written skills. So those are all outlined on this slide, and they're all the legal skills that you will use day to day as a solicitor. When I was in practice, I didn't do much advocacy because I was a non-contentious corporate lawyer, but I did use all the other skills in my practice. So they really, really are crucial skills that you need to practice as a solicitor. So the way in which the SRA examine SQE2 is through a mixture of what they call assessment stations. So SQE2 differs slightly from SQE1 in that it is just one exam consisting of 16 assessment stations testing those 6 skills. So there are 12 written assessment stations covering those 4 legal written skills, and then there are 4 stations covering the oral skills. It's a pretty rigorous diet of exams over a 5-day period. There are some breaks between the oral assessments and the written assessments, but nevertheless, it does require a lot of stamina, a lot of focus, as well as that sort of underpinning knowledge and skills as well. So SQE2 is examined. There are assessment points at more frequent periods than SQE1. So essentially they're every 3 months. And at the moment, they run SQE2 exams in January, April, July, and October. And again, the SRA charge a fee for SQE2. So that's in addition to your SQE1 fees. And again, that's another fee that's just under £3,000 at the moment. But as it says, they have been putting up the fees each year. So that's something you'll need to take into account, particularly if you're looking at sitting SQE1 and SQE2 a little way into the future. So that's SQE2 and SQE1. Is there anything that anyone wants to ask before we move on to what I'm sure is a lot of interest, is qualifying work experience?
Thank you, Sarah. We don't have any questions for now,
Oh,
but yeah.
okay, well, I think there might be some questions from the next slide, because this is one that always generates quite a lot of interest and something that perhaps you were already aware of. So the qualifying work experience element of the SQE pathway to qualification is what replaces what used to be known as the old training contract. But the qualifying work experience, as it says on this slide, is a lot more flexible than the training contract. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. So just as the training contract was a period of practical work experience, so is the qualifying work experience. But what's different is that the qualifying work experience is all about developing some of what the SRA call the solicitor competencies. And this is a range of skills and attributes that the SRA deem necessary for you to be able to carry out your role as a day one solicitor. So the training contract was all about developing skills as a day one trainee. The QWE is all about developing those skills at the standard of a day one solicitor. So it's all of those skills such as good communication, good drafting, managing your workload, all of those sort of day-to-day activities that you'll be doing as a solicitor. And the other difference between one of the differences between qualifying work experience and the training contract is that you don't have to rotate your way through different subject practice area seats. So you could undertake your qualifying work experience in one particular practice area, particularly if you know that that is where you want to qualify. So perhaps you're already a paralegal in, say, for example, an immigration practice, and you know you want to carry on doing immigration work when you qualify, you can carry out your qualifying work experience solely in that practice area. The reason for that is because the law that underpins your qualifying work experience is actually tested by the SQE exams. So what they're looking for in the qualifying work experience is those practical competencies that you'll be developing. You don't need to develop all of it. There's a whole list of solicitor competencies, so you don't need to develop all of those. What the SRA are looking for is that you develop at least 2 of the solicitor competencies. But obviously, the more that you can develop, the better it is for your own personal development as you progress through your legal career. The other difference, and this is where the flexibility comes in, is that your qualifying work experience doesn't have to be undertaken just in England and Wales, as was the case under a training contract. You can undertake that qualifying work experience anywhere in the world. But what is important that is your qualifying work experience is signed off, or as the SRA call it, confirmed by a solicitor or a compliance officer of legal practice, which is a sort of regulatory position from the SRA, who is based in England and Wales. So it can be a solicitor. They don't have to be a practicing solicitor, as long as their name is on the roll of solicitors in England and Wales, then they can sign off your qualifying work experience. So in the same way that a training contract was for 2 years, similarly, qualifying work experience, you have to clock up 24 months, so 2 years again, experience. But there is no maximum or minimum length for your placement. So again, unlike the traditional training contract where you might have seen that you had 4 seats in different practice areas, each seat being 6 months, there is no minimum or maximum length for your qualifying work experience. What is important that in that placement you develop those solicitor competencies. So obviously a longer period of time at a particular placement or particular workplace is going to help you develop those solicitor competencies. So that's something to bear in mind. And the other thing is that you don't have to do all of your qualifying work experience at one firm or one organisations. You are allowed to make up your qualifying work experience from up to 4 different organisations. So that's the first set of bullet points there. The other things I just want to point out from this slide about the flexibility of qualifying work experience is the fact that if you're already working, for example, in a paralegal role, that can count as qualifying work experience as long as you're covering those solicitor competencies and you get that work signed off by a solicitor. And your qualifying work experience doesn't have to be paid. So if you do any voluntary work, for example, if you volunteer at the Citizens Advice Bureau, or perhaps if you're at university, if you can participate in a law clinic, then that also can count towards your qualifying work experience. Again, the important thing is that a qualified solicitor on the roll of solicitors signs off your work, otherwise it will be rejected by the SRA. So that's qualifying work experience. Have we got any questions on that before we move on to look at the SQE pathways, which I know, Jolie, you're going to cover, and I know that's one of the questions we've got.
Yes, we do. So, yeah, we do have a questions about the advice in taking the training contract and see if they would like to do it before or after the SQE. But that will be something that I can talk about in terms of the SQE pathways, because we have basically prepared or give you guys on the screen here, you will be able to see a few examples on how you can actually approach the SQE. And because of the flexibility of the SQE, and also as mentioned by Sarah, the kind of flexible approach in terms of the qualifying work experience, you will have quite flexible options in terms of how you can do your qualifying work experience and also prepare for your SQE. So the first one that you can see here is quite a traditional pathway. In the blue box, you can see that I know I want to be a solicitor and I want to get my qualification done and out of the way. So this is quite a traditional pathway that people will do. They will do their qualification first. They will study before they start working in the legal sector. So they will do the SQE1 preparation and then take the SQE1 assessment and then SQE2 preparation and then SQE2. Or if they want, they would choose for the full-time LLM in legal practice. So while gaining a master's qualification, it will also prepare them for the SQE. So after they get all the exams and qualification done and out of the way, they then start doing the qualifying work experience. So that is one option, one example on how you can approach the SQE. And you can see on the second one, it's also quite a popular path for those who need to work while they study, or for someone who need to earn to fund their study or want to gain work experience before or during they prepare for the SQE. And based on my experience talking to quite a lot of students, quite a few of them, they find it really, really helpful for them to work during they prepare for the SQE exam, because they find it more helpful to help with their SQE prep, to help their study and get a better chance in passing the SQE, because you can actually apply those legal law, the legal knowledge, the legal skills in the work that you are doing. And then for the last one, the third pathway example that you can see is that I'm not sure if being a solicitor is for me. So this one is for people who would like to test the water and to try working in the legal sector before deciding whether you would like to take the exam for the SQE. So if you are a little bit unsure whether the solicitor profession is for you, quite a lot of people will try to gain some qualifying work experience first. There's no harm doing that by working in the legal sector, gaining some work experience. Once they think that they are confirmed, they know that they would like to actually do the SQE exam, they wanted to become a solicitor, then they can start preparing for the SQE and sit the exam. So here's just some examples of how you can gain the work experience and also when you can do the SQE preparation. And some might work for you, and some pathway might work for other people. So I guess the main thing here is just to consider what is the most suitable pathway for you. So Sarah, do you have any further points that you wanted to add on here?
Yeah, I was just going to add, because it follows on from one of the questions that's been posed about advising doing your SQE alongside perhaps qualifying work experience or a training contract, if that's what it's still badged as. And actually, if you do get the opportunity to do that, then actually that is quite beneficial, because we do find, it's not necessary, but people do find that if they are actually undertaking some legal work in a legal environment while studying, it really helps to put their preparation into context, and it helps them to be able to get into the mindset of what it's like to be a solicitor. So obviously, absolutely, you don't need to do that at all. But if you do have the opportunity, that might be something to consider. Although obviously, as you say, Jolie, you do need to think about how much time you've got to commit to the to an SQE course alongside that work that you might be doing. But it does have its sort of practical benefits as well. So I don't know if that helps that person who posed that question.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. We actually have another question from another participant. I have a law degree and they graduated 5 years ago, and they are looking to work in-house abroad and get signed off from a UK solicitor. So is it possible, and would you advise taking a refresher in their law degree or to do an LLM?
Okay, so absolutely, you can work in Dubai and get your work signed off from a UK solicitor. But what I would say is that it's a personal confirmation from the person in the UK. So they will need to be satisfied that you've actually undertaken that work, and they will need to have some knowledge of obviously the work that you've undertaken. So keeping a record of that work you've done, and getting some feedback from perhaps the person that you're working with in Dubai as part of that record is going to be really important to make sure that the person in the UK feels comfortable signing off that work for you, because it's their sort of professional position that is put at risk if not. So that's something I would absolutely discuss with you, the person who you're looking to seek confirmation from, before you go ahead with that, because you don't want to get further down the line and they say, well, actually, I'm not comfortable. And then you can set the parameters of what they will be expecting from you in Dubai so that you can meet those requirements in order for them to be able to sign off. The other part of the question, just in terms of a refresher, you might not need a refresher. You can do a refresher, but it might be, and you don't need to do the LLM if you like. What I would say is that you probably need to just set some time aside, a little bit extra time aside, in order to sort of refresh your knowledge of those LLB subjects. You get given all the materials you need. So once you start reading them, hopefully that work will come back to you. But I would say that if you have done your degree a little time ago, you probably need to put aside additional study time just to get back up to speed. But you don't necessarily need to do a refresher or an additional LLM in order to be able to do that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. And yeah, I think that's the questions we have in regards to SQE pathways and qualifying work experience. So thank you very much. So moving on the screen here, you will be able to see a QR code, and it is our Becoming a Solicitor guide. So if you are at an early stage of deciding whether the solicitor profession is right for you, please feel free to scan the QR code here and download this guide. So in this guide, you will be able to learn more about the day-to-day life of a solicitor. You will also learn more about different types of solicitor and how to decide if the solicitor profession is right for you. So feel free to download this. And of course, if you have any further questions or would like to discuss this further with the team, feel free to contact us as well. So next, I'm going to pass it back to you, Sarah, and you will be talking a little bit more about the MCQ question sample. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I said earlier that we would be having a little look at a typical SQE1 style multiple choice question. So this is actually taken from part of our preparation course, and I'll be doing a bit of a demo of some of the other resources you'll have access to. But this is one of the many thousands of MCQ questions that we have available to you to get ready for SQE1. So this is all based on contract law. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through very briefly through the scenario and the options, and then just sort of talk you through the various elements and perhaps how you might go about answering this question. So this is, as it says here, is based on contract law. So this is and apologies for those people who perhaps haven't got law degrees. I will try and demystify some of these concepts for you, but please bear with me if that is you. Okay, so this is a person who's moving from a house to a flat where they're not allowed to take pets. So they've agreed to sell their French bulldog to their neighbour for £100 because they know that the neighbour is very fond of the dog and is going to give it a good home. So that's one of the factors that's important to them. However, on the day of the move, the person knocks on the door of the neighbour and basically asks for more money because they've actually found out the dog is worth over £1,000. So basically they want more money. £100 is not enough. So the question is there a binding contract? So before you delve into the 4 subjects, what we would recommend you do is just quickly remind yourself of the 4 elements that are needed to create a binding contract. And for those of you who may not know, it's a thing called offer. So the offer of something. So here there was the offer of the dog. There was acceptance. So here there was acceptance of that offer by the neighbour. The third is there must be what's called consideration, and that is Usually, this is a little bit sort of broad brush, but usually that's the payment of money and there or a promise to pay. And the fourth is an intention to create legal relations. So essentially, once you've got those four principles in your head, you'll then need to think, well, which element of a binding contract is this question is all about? And there's a clue in the scenario because it's telling you it's all about the £100 is not adequate consideration. So this question is asking you to home in on that element of how you create a binding contract. So once you've got those four little principles in your head, you then can move on to the 5 options. So as I said, each question will always have 5 options, each of which at first glance could be plausible, but there is one that sticks out and as the single best answer. So that's the one we're trying to identify. So is there a binding contract? The first is yes, because the seller's too late to change their mind. The second one is no, because £100 is not adequate consideration because the dog is worth over £1,000. C, yes, as consideration only has to be sufficient, not economically adequate. D, yes, because the relevant factor is that the neighbour will give the dog a good home. And E, no, because this is an example of past consideration. Now, before I give you the answer, does anyone want to put in the chat what they think the answer is? It doesn't matter. I'm just as a sort of just a little bit of a game. Anyone prepared to put in their answers?
Someone said C.
Excellent. Anyone else?
C.
Everyone following
We
suit.
have a lot of C.
Yeah. And that's because that is the correct answer. So well done, everyone. Well done. So brilliant. Absolutely. And the way in which you do that is you would obviously go through the others to try and eliminate them. I'm not going to go through that now because obviously that will take some time, but essentially at the college we will give you tips as to how you can go about eliminating the wrong answers until you hone in on the right one. And as you'll see from the screen, when you do click on the right answer, it tells you why that's the right answer, and it will also refer you back to the resource that you will be using alongside the online materials, which is our manual. So each of these practice areas, we have a manual for each practice area, and those accompany all the other online resources you have, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and it will refer you back to the relevant section of the manual, so you can see a little, remind yourself of why that is the correct answer. If you clicked and asked, say for example you said you answered A instead, again when you click on that to reveal the answer, it again would explain why that's not the correct answer and would also refer you back to the relevant section of the manual, so you can sort of refresh your knowledge and make sure that you've understood why that wasn't the right answer and understood what is the right answer. So that's one of the sort of typical MCQs that we have. I was now going to show you, and I think I'm going to have sharing rights now.
That's right.
Julie, yeah.
Yeah, I will stop sharing now. But yeah, before we will go back to the slide later. But then basically we do have demo and also sample materials online where you will be able to see as well. So I'll stop sharing my screen now so that you can share. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Lovely. Okay,
Thank you.
so just as I'm sharing my screen, okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Has that come up now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, excellent. So that question that I've just we just went through very briefly was actually the last stage. Multiple choice questions are the last stage of your study units that you will be, excuse me, looking at in SQE 1. So essentially, there are a number of stages that you will be building up to get to those multiple choice questions. And the demonstration that I will just show you now is just going to show you those building blocks to enable you to then answer multiple choice questions. So the one I'm going to show you is contract law, because that's what we've been looking at. So I've told you that there are 13 practice areas. We don't expect you to undertake all of those practice areas yourself. We break those practice areas down into 118 subunits. And each subunit, and one of the ones I'm going to show you now is the subunit relating to formation of contracts. Each of those subunits, just bear with me, sorry, I'm just going to have to mute just for 1 minute because I've just got a bit of a cough.
No problem at all. There you go.
I'm okay now. Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. So each of those subunits follows exactly the same approach. So the one I'm going to show you relates, as it says on this screen, to the subunit called formation and its subunit contract 1.1. So once you've got to grips with this methodology for one subunit, you follow the same approach for every other of those 118 subunits to get you through the all the syllabus that you need to be able to tackle SQE1. So first of all, always have an introduction to tell you what you'll be examining. So here you can see all the sub areas of contractual formation that you'll be looking at. And then we like to have a range of different audio visual resources that you can look at. I've already mentioned the manual, but before you get to the manual, we like to give you an overview video. So you can get an overview to remind you, for example, if you've done the LLB already, just a reminder of all the main points that you need to remember in relation, as it says here, in relation to offer and acceptance. And then the other video will be on consideration and intention to create legal relations. So that's to give you a nice overview of those 4 elements that make up a contract formation. You can also, you might not like videos, instead you might like to read all about that issue. So we do always provide a transcript of the video in case you want to read that instead of watching the video. So that's your springboard into then the more detailed reading that we then will direct you to do. And this is directed reading in relation to particular sections or particular chapters of the manual. So here we are asking you to look at only chapter 1.1 of the contract law manual. And again, we're doing this to break your the practice areas down into bite-sized chunks so that you've got those building blocks to enable you to embed and recall that knowledge. So we ask you to read that section of contract law, and you can see also that where they've been checked, because at the start of the course you will be given a printed copy of the manual, but obviously the law might change since the printing, so we will always tell you where a particular section has been updated. So once you've done your reading, you'll then move on to activities. And we provide you again with a range of activities to help you apply your knowledge. Now, we always tell you to do the multiple choice questions at the end, because obviously that's practice for getting ready for SQE1. But we also give you access to what we call our drag and drops. So dragging the correct words into the correct place, and also flashcards. And there are always a number. So here you can see there are 2 drag and drops. And then you've also got flashcards to to help you with your applying your law to a scenario. And here you can see there are 19 flashcards on contract formation, which you can use to test your knowledge. Again, you don't have to use all of those resources. I find that when I'm teaching students find the flashcards really, really helpful. And you can go over these as many times as you want. So they're really useful for revision and consolidation as well. Once you've done the flashcards, you then move on to the multiple choice questions. And again, there'll always be at least 10 multiple choice questions at the end of each subunit. So as you can see, you're being exposed all the time. You're being exposed to the type of multiple choice questions that you're going to face in SQE1. And you can see here that I think there are 10 questions in this particular batch, and you can work your way through them. And we do tell you to basically work your way through them at a pace that you would be expected to tackle them again into SQE2, so that you can again practice what it's really like to sit MCQs. But you can retake the test multiple times, because people say, well, I'll remember the answer I put in before, but the options sort of get jumbled up, so that makes it a better test the second time round. And the multiple choice question we've just looked at was actually multiple choice question number 3 from this batch of 10. So as I said, you can go over, so these resources are available to you for the entire course, and indeed for a period of time afterwards. So you can go over these things as many times as you want, until you feel confident that you've got that knowledge embedded and you'll be able to recall it. So I shall stop sharing. And I just
Thank you
wondered if
very
there's
much.
any questions.
Yes, let me quickly double check. So one of the questions that people have is, does our college offer one-to-one learning coach session in its SQE1 preparation? Will you be able to give us more insight on this, Sarah?
Yeah, okay. So we don't have coaching sessions as well. So I'll be coming on to the support in relation to SQE1 and SQE2 now. Okay, let's do it now. So as you've seen from my demonstration, a lot of the work we do at the college is what we call guided independent learning. So it's independent because you do it at your own pace and your own time, but it's guided because it's taking you step by step through each of those activities which I've just demonstrated. But obviously, we're really conscious that as an online provider, that people don't feel isolated and that they do have that wraparound support. So it's not coaching as such, but it is group and individual support. So I'll just explain the individual support first, because that might be what the question is getting at. So for the SQE modules, you are appointed a personal supervisor. And the purpose, although they will be someone either within or external to the college who is a practitioner, so who has been or is a solicitor, the purpose of the personal supervisor is not to coach you on the subject specific issues. That comes somewhere else, and I'll explain where. But the personal supervisor is there to meet with you at regular touch points to discuss your engagement and progression. For example, they might, when I'm in my personal supervisor sessions, we might talk about, well, what is it that you're struggling with or finding challenging about the multiple choice questions? What is it about the legal knowledge? Are you finding it difficult to embed? Are you finding it difficult to recall? So we talk about tips and techniques to help you tackle that breadth of legal knowledge, and also how to tackle the multiple choice questions. So it's very much a sort of it's not hand holding, but it's a supervising and to help you progress through the course. So in terms of subject specific support, this is done via our surgeries and discussion board. So each of those 13 practice areas will have dedicated 1 hour surgeries on particular legal topics within that practice area. So it might be that the supervisor knows that a particular topic is always quite challenging for students. So they might go over some of those aspects with the students, and they'll answer specific queries on that practice area as well. And they might also unpick a particularly difficult multiple choice question in the way that I started to do in my demo, just to help students understand how they might tackle a multiple choice question without feeling overwhelmed. You can also post any subject specific queries you've got on related discussion boards. So each of the 13 practice areas has a specific discussion board, and we absolutely encourage students to post questions on there, whether from their directed independent learning or something from the surgery, and those will be picked up by the supervisor and answered. And then the last form of support is via our group town hall meetings, which are facilitated by the module leader, and they are at strategic points throughout the course to basically orientate you for the next stage of the course, and to remind you perhaps of SRA, SQE booking windows, and to talk through sort of exam statistics and that kind of thing that have come from the SRA. So it's there to provide you with more practical logistical support through the course. Does that answer your question in a long-winded way? You're on mute, I think, Jolie. I can't hear
Oh,
you.
yes. Sorry. Can you hear me okay now? Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really useful for quite a lot of potential students who are considering to start their SQE preparation with us because, of course, this is something that is very different from what university will be like. So, a university, for example, they will have lecture and then they will have seminars, but the structure that we have is you need to do the guided independent learning first, and then we will provide the support, we will provide the supervision. So it's really good to hear from your side, from the academic side, how like the whole learning or the whole support will be like as a student studying or preparing for the SQE for us. So really, really helpful. Thank you very much, Sarah. And I know that there's some questions on the
Mhm.
Q&A. It's not particular like related to this, but then someone was asking how many months or years or how long are the SQE1 results valid for? Will you
That's
be
a
able
good
to?
question. Yeah,
Mhm.
they don't go stale. Essentially, what the SRA say is that you have to complete both SQE one and SQE two within a 6-year period. But once you've banked them, that's it. You don't have to do any sort of as long as you complete your SQE exams within that 6-year period, then you then that's all that needs to be done. And then you can, provided you got your QWE and there are no character and suitability issues, you could then apply for admission to the role. Once you're qualified, there are sort of professional development milestones that you have to complete, but you wouldn't have to undertake any further sort of SQE exams.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. We also have another questions about QWE where we discussed earlier. But for international students, if they obtain their qualifying work experience outside of the UK and they need to be confirmed by a UK solicitor, can we advise on any way that they can access for like consultants, or is there anyone that would provide such services?
I'm not aware of anyone who does that. It's a very sort of personal thing to have to confirm a QWE because it's your personal SRA registration that's on the line. So I think you need to have a sort of personal relationship with the person who is coming to you to sign up for sign off for the qualifying work experience. So no, I don't think there is. There may be, it's a very new regime, and it might be that in the future that kind of service is provided, subject, I imagine, to quite stringent parameters. But at the moment, there isn't anything like that in the legal market that I'm aware of.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I guess we can move on. Of course, we have some questions around study hours for
Mhm, mhm.
SQE prep course. So on this slide, will you be able to give us some more guidelines or guidance here to what
Yes.
study more will be right for them?
Okay, and I know, I think it's the one that was posted right at the start from
Yes.
Raki. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Sorry if I've got it wrong, but this might hopefully answer your question. So let's look at the 3 study modes. So we have 3 study modes, what we call our 13-week full-time, our 20-week part-time, and then our 40-week sort of extended course. So in terms of starting with the most intense first, so that's the 13-week, and this is SQE1 prep. There is a slightly different regime for SQE2. So essentially, as you can see, in terms of the learning time per week, we would be expecting you to devote 25 to 30 hours of study a week if you do the 13-week course. And that's in order to be able to get through the syllabus. So as you can see, it's a fairly full-time um, role. So really, we'd only really advocate that position if you are essentially a full-time student or you're doing very, very part-time work, and are prepared basically to put your life on hold for 13 weeks. We have had students in the past who worked and done the 13-week course. They've said they did it, but it was a real challenge. And as I said, they had to sort of more or less put the rest of their life on hold while they were juggling that amount of work. So essentially what we're looking, those subunits that I was talking about, you'd be looking to do about 10 or 11 subunits a week on a range of different subjects. So that's why you need that amount of time. On addition to the learning time, obviously, so as well as getting through those 10 or 11 subunits, you'll have a number of live sessions. So those practice surgeries that I talked about, you'd have 3 and then one a week in terms of town hall meetings. If you can't make some of those group live sessions, then on whatever mode of study you choose, those are all recorded and posted to our learning platform Canvas, so that you can watch those recordings in your own time. So moving on to the part-time 20-week course. This is a course that is quite popular, particularly for those who are working alongside the studies. Although, again, I would say it probably gives itself over more to a part-time work than full-time work, although we do have quite a lot of students who do have full-time jobs and do the 20-week course. But as you can see, it's still a fairly high amount of learning time per week that you need to devote to your studies. So here, those 15 to 20 hours, you're looking to complete about 7 or 8 of those subunits, along with those live sessions that I've mentioned here. I'll come on to the personal supervision sessions in a minute. And then our final 40-week course, which is really recommended for those people who have really high level of commitments, whether that's work, other obligations outside of study, and you're having to juggle a number of things, and therefore you need to space out your study in a more leisurely manner, if you like. So here we'll be looking at about 8 hours of study per week, so you'll be working through about 4 subunits in that time. And you can see that your surgeries and your town hall meetings are spaced out as well. Just coming to that final row, the personal supervision sessions, every course you'll have those 10 personal supervisor meetings, some of which are the group sessions when you meet together as a little personal tutor group, and then also individual personal supervisor sessions as well. And obviously, the longer the course, the more spaced out those supervision meetings are. So I'm hoping that information on this slide has now helped to answer some of those questions on the amount of time you need to devote to your SQE 1 studies.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. We actually have a question about the hard copy materials. So how many test manuals will they receive for the SQE preparation?
Okay, so you'll get a manual for each practice area. So that's 13 manuals in total. But they come in sort of 3 volumes. So it's 3 lever arch files containing sort of those 13 practice area manuals.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. Any more questions that we have in regards to the study hours and also our group sessions and personal supervision sessions? No? No problem. Okay, thanks. So we can just move on. But thank you very much, Sarah. It's very, very good advice on the differences between the 13, the 20, and also 40 weeks. So hopefully this will give people some insights as in how to choose the best preparation course for them. So thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
So moving on, yeah, just wanted to summarize what we have talked about today and wanted to highlight the kind of approach that we have at the college in helping you to pass and to prepare for the SQE. So the QR code is another guide that we have, and it is the Secrets to SQE Success Guide, where you will be able to find some top tips in passing and preparing for the SQE. So feel free to download the guide. And just wanted to give you guys another highlight. Of course, earlier, Sarah has mentioned about the flexible learning, and you can also see you will be able to choose either to study full-time or part-time. And you can also basically have the weekly timetable where you will be able to plan ahead before the and plan your learning into your work week. And also the multiple group life sessions, town hall and surgeries will make sure that you progress successfully throughout the course. And we also have the personal supervision meeting with your supervisor. And I also wanted to highlight at the SQE Ready review that we have. So there will be advice provided by our supervisor on the likelihood of passing the SQE assessment based on your performance. So by doing our preparation course, you will have this ready review to make sure that you are ready. You can have the conversation with your supervisor, make sure that you are ready before you go and sit your SQE exam. And quite a lot of students find this very accurate and find it very helpful in helping them to do the SQE as well. And then, of course, the hard copy materials that Sarah just mentioned earlier, you will be able to get that even though this is an online course. And also we wanted to also highlight the reasonable adjustment. I've touched base on this very quickly earlier in the beginning, but we wanted to make sure that that everyone know that we are fully committed to ensuring that every student has access to fair learning and also assessment. So we aim to offer personalized support tailored to the need of each of the students. So if that's something that you need, we would definitely encourage you to reach out to us as early as possible, even before you're a student with us, to discuss any concern or any considerations that you might wish to address with us. This is because we wanted to make sure that we will be able to accommodate your individual needs as best as we can and also as soon as we can. And also, finally, I wanted to also highlight the excellent student feedback and also satisfaction rates that we receive. So to give you some examples of some numbers, so for students studied with us in 2023 last year, 85% of them were satisfied or very, very satisfied with their personal supervisor. And also from last year, 2023, the college has a 100% student satisfaction rate for our law conversion GFL course. So it's very, very rewarding for the college to see that students are highly satisfied about our course and our approaches. And we hope that this is something that you'll be considering as well, and that we will be helping you and also helping you pass the SQE. So on the slide here, you'll be able to see the courses that we offer and also the study mode and also the course fee. And you'll be able to see the GDL that we offer for it's a law conversion course. We also offer the SQE1 prep and SQE2 prep, and also the LLM, which also include SQE1 and SQE2 prep. So finally, I would like to also talk a little bit about the funding opportunities, as there are quite a few questions around this when you guys register, so I wanted to address this. If you scan the QR code here, you will be able to see some funding options and funding opportunities, and you'll be able to read more information about it. But we just wanted to highlight a few points because the SQE is very, very flexible, this route. We want to make sure that you are aware and you do your research when choosing an SQE prep provider. And you need to take the cost of the preparation course into consideration when you are looking for your provider. And you need to make sure that you understand you also need to take another like spare some money for the actual exam as well, as the assessment course is separate from the prep course. So you need to do your research, make sure that you understand what the SQE prep provider offers and what the cost will be. And also look for student loan option for LLM. For example, our courses for the LLM will include SQE 1 and SQE 2, and you can apply for postgraduate loan. And also look for courses where interest-free installment options are available. And of course, you can earn while you learn, as we mentioned earlier in the SQE pathway slide. So try, for example, choose the part-time option and plan your learning into your work week. And if you choose our 40 weeks option, for example, for the course fee, your second installment, which it's basically the half of the cost, will not be required until you are at the halfway point of the course. So the longer, for example, the 40 weeks, you will be able to spread out the cost of your preparation. So that might be something that you can consider as well. And also try to explore different schemes and different scholarship. And also you need to understand that most likely those schemes and scholarships are quite competitive as well. So make sure you do your research, you understand what those scholarship, what those schemes are about, and apply if you think this is something that you wanted to pursue. And lastly, we just wanted to make sure that you understand what the SQE is about, and try, if you want to limit your cost, try to limit your cost by planning ahead. For example, book your SQE assessment early when the booking window is open, and look for your the nearest center to limit your transportation and also accommodation cost. So these are something that you might want to consider as well. Okay, and finally, we also wanted to give you guys a list of start dates that we have. Of course, you can also scan the QR code and it should lead you to the course calendar on our webpage. So all the information that we have here is also available on our website. But of course, if you have any further questions, you can also email us or give us a call. Okay, so of course on the screen here, you can book a one-to-one Calendly appointment with us, or you can also join our LinkedIn SQE information group for any updates or any information related to the SQE. And you can also see our email and also phone number. So feel free to get in touch with us if you would like to discuss further or if you have any further question. So I have one final question here, Sarah, if that's okay. Someone asked and said that they have no experience in legal, and to become a solicitor requires getting work experience. So can you give us any insight or advice on how they can get the work experience with law firms?
Yeah, I mean that's a common question that a lot of students ask. So at the college, what we can do is we have a careers centre hub, and we also produce a weekly student newsletter that sort of tell students about the opportunities that we are aware of in relation to perhaps vacation schemes or sort of work placements or roles that you could apply to. But if you didn't come to the college, then what you'd probably need to do is there are a number of websites, such as the Law Society website, which has information on how to obtain work experience from law firms. And then there are a number of student guides. Check the Chambers Guide is very, very good. That's an online service that again gives an overview and insight into how to go about getting work experience at law firms. So those would be a couple of starting points that I'd suggest. Alternatively, and I know that this is often difficult, but if you've got any connections with anyone in the legal profession, even if it's just just a friend of a friend, then go and ask if you can perhaps just shadow them for some time, just to sort of just get an idea of what it's like to be a lawyer, and perhaps go and, as a starting point, just go and sit in a law court, and just see what it's like to see a case being heard. And then when you do get the opportunity, perhaps to maybe go into the legal marketplace, you can then sort of network, and you can use that knowledge you've acquired through just observing how things work. That might be a way forward. The other option which has just come to mind is, what about volunteering at a sort of a citizens advice bureau, or a local law clinic? They have quite often, towns and cities have law clinics where you can, maybe start off as an admin volunteer just to get your foot in the door, but then perhaps you might be given some more responsibility. So that's always an avenue to look at, because remember, volunteering is still can still count as qualifying work experience. So those are just some options to think about.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. And we also have another question that if can someone do LLM without a law degree if they have an undergraduate degree in a different subject?
I think the answer, I don't deal with admissions, but I think the answer is yes. We just need a law degree. We just need a law degree. I think we have a minimum requirement of a 2-2 for a degree, but it doesn't have to be a law degree.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So as long as you have a degree, it doesn't have to be a law degree, then you will meet the entry requirement of our LLM. But of course, as mentioned by Sarah earlier, whether you wanted to build your like foundation knowledge in law first, you can always consider the law conversion course, the GDL, for example. But according to the SRA, it's not compulsory that you need to do a GDL or a law conversion course. So I hope that answers your question. And a final question that we have here is, how long do you have access to course materials? So as far as I know, it's 10 months after they finish their program. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yeah, so if you it's 10 months after the module end. So if you're doing if you're doing it as a standalone, if you're doing SQE1 prep as a standalone, then you'll have access to to the materials for 10 months after that. And then if you're doing it as part of the LLM program, you'll have it for 10 months after you've completed that particular module on the program. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Sarah. I don't see any further questions that we have on the Q&A box, but I hope we answer most of the questions. But of course, as mentioned, if you have any further questions or would like to check with us, feel free to contact us in the future. But thank you very much, Sarah, today. It has been really, really insightful, the information that we have here. And thank you so much. And we hope to see you guys in our next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.